Lawmakers are hearing testimony on a different environmental issue this afternoon.
The safety of our drinking water. Brian Mastry joins us live in the newsroom with the details on what this bill would require.
Aaron, John, UNMC researchers have said that Nebraska has the high pediatric cancer rates among the 5 highest in the nation. Some experts suspect it's from high levels of nitrates in our drinking water. Those nitrates mostly come from fertilizer and animal waste. Today's hearing focused on whether to beef up how we monitor groundwater wells and who gets that information. Most of Nebraska gets its drinking water from the ground. LB 1258 aims to further identify and reduce nitrate contamination in groundwater near concentrated animal feeding operations. Omaha Senator Michaela Cavanaugh is the bill's introducer.
Will hopefully strengthen the department's ability to enforce the law and their own regulations.
Several people testified in support of adding testing with monitoring wells and reporting requirements to state regulators as a good idea. Jess Lammers told the Natural Resources Committee that this is important because once the water is dirty, it's dirty.
You build a new facility today, you are going to have to take samples of that dirt, and it's going to include the current nitrate level. So if Senator Cavanaugh's bill was implemented with a well within some justifiable distance to the feeding operation, you would then unequivocally know whether or not the feeding operation was contributing to higher nitrate levels in that area.
While no one spoke in opposition, some committee members with farming backgrounds suggested that adding well monitors and reporting requirements won't make a difference. In their view, it's because the high nitrate levels are there because farmers more than a generation ago added ridiculous amounts of fertilizer to their fields.
I can tell you that when you look at nitrate levels in groundwater, a lot of people want to point to livestock facilities, but when you really look at the modern livestock facilities, you're talking about retention ponds that are lined. You're talking about contaminated or confinement facilities, particularly for hogs in particular. They're really not the culprits here.
On your side, Brian Mastry, 6 News.